Hey guys, today we are going to review what we have learned about vectors. So from these two vectors, A and B, we are going to sketch on this axis down here 2 times vector B. So vector B goes 3 to the right and then down 1. 2 times that will go 6 to the right and down 2. So we'll end right there. Okay, it will go through right 3 and down 1 along the way. Okay, it's not an incredibly straight line there, but it works. When we put our arrow on, we want to make sure the arrow does not go past the end of the vector. Okay, then we have the opposite of vector A. So vector A goes right 2 and up 2. The opposite of that goes left 2 and down 2. Okay, so here we have 2 times vector B. Here we have the opposite of vector A. And next is 2 times vector B minus vector A. So that will be combining 2 times vector B with the opposite of vector A. So I will slide the opposite of vector A right down here. Now vector A, the opposite of vector A goes left 2 and down 2. So when I slide this tail down here, from there I go left 2 and down 2, and it puts me right there. Okay, so I go from this initial tail to that final head. And there is 2 times vector B minus vector A. Okay, so we're going to write this vector in component form and then find the magnitude. Okay, so in component form, we will subtract the x's and we will subtract the y's, and we have to make sure we do so in the order of head minus tail. Okay, so 4 minus negative 4 gives me the x component. Negative 2 minus 3 gives me the y component. 4 minus negative 4 is 8. And negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. So there it is in component form. Okay, next find the magnitude. The magnitude is the square root of the x component squared plus the y component squared. So that is the square root of 64 plus 25, which is the square root of 89. Okay, now there are no square numbers that go into 89, so I will leave it just like that, the square root of 89. If this radical can be simplified, then we should do so. Okay, so here's a vector without a graph, and I want to write it in component form, but I'm going to do the same thing, just head minus tail. It doesn't matter if I have a graph or not. Okay, so from, that's where it starts, that's the tail, to where it ends, that's the head. So head minus tail is negative 3 minus 4, and negative 5 minus negative 1. Okay, so negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. Negative 5 minus negative 1, that's negative 5 plus 1, that is negative 4. So negative 7, negative 4 is component form. And we want to make sure when we write component form, we put it inside of these chevrons. Okay, so the magnitude is the square root of the x component squared plus the y component squared. So that's 49 plus 16. 49 plus 16 is 65. Okay, now 65 is 5 times 13, but I don't think I'm going to get any square numbers that go into 65. So I cannot simplify this one. Okay, next, find the magnitude and direction. So we have component form already, and we want to find from that the magnitude and the direction. So for the magnitude, we do the square root of the x component squared plus the y component squared. So that is 64 plus 9. Okay, so that is the square root of 73, and once again we have a number that we're not going to be able to simplify. There are no square numbers that go into 73. Remember though, if you can simplify it, you should. So there's our magnitude. For the direction, -8, 3 is right about there. Okay, so for the direction, first we are going to find this reference angle. Okay, to get that reference angle, it's going to be opposite over adjacent. That should not have been negative, so 3 and -8 are opposite and adjacent. Okay, which is the y over x, so we are doing arctangent. Y over x, so that's 3 over -8. Okay, now, when we are in the first quadrant, we add 0 to our arctangent. Over here on the left side, we add 180 in the second quadrant and 180 in the third quadrant, or 360 in the fourth quadrant. So here we are in the second quadrant. Once we do arctan 3 over -8, we need to add 180. Okay, so we'll do second tangent 3 over -8, and then we will add 180, and we get 159.44 degrees. Make sure that your calculator is in degree mode. Okay, next up we will write this in vector form. Okay, and then after we write it in vector form, we will write the magnitude and the direction. Now, vector form, that's the same as component form. Here it says vector component form. Here it says vector form. You could see either vector component form, or vector form. Any one of those will mean the same thing. Okay, so for the x coordinate, x is cosine, 7 cosine 138. So that's the vector's x component. And then the vector's y component is 7 sine 138. 7 cosine 138 and 7 sine 138. So we have -5.20 and 4.68. Okay, and don't forget the chevrons for component form. Okay, next is magnitude and direction. Okay, now we could go through all the work with the magnitude formula and the direction formula, but that's going to give us approximate answers when the exact answers are staring us in the face right here. Remember, this is polar form. Polar form is magnitude and direction. Okay, so our answer should be exactly 7 and exactly 138 degrees. If we go through this work here, we're probably going to end up with some decimals. We don't want those decimals because the exact answers are right here. Next, we are going to add vectors n plus m. So that's 5, -4, plus -3, 7. 5 plus -3 is 2. -4 plus 7 is 3. M minus n, so vector m minus vector n. -3, 7, minus 5, -4. So we have -3 minus 5, that's -8. And we have 7 minus -4, which is 7 plus 4, that is 11. And then we have 3 times n, so 3 times 5, -4, plus 4 times m, 4 times -3, 7. I'm going to rewrite that. I'll multiply by this scale factor, so I've got 15, negative 12, plus negative 12, 28. 15 plus negative 12 is 3. Negative 12 plus 28 is 16. Okay, now we've got just a couple more questions here for our review. We are going to find the sum of these graphically. It looks like this is the longest one, and I like to leave the longest one where it is, even though it's not required. And then I'll just move my way around clockwise. So I'll take this one here and slide it over to here. Okay, now this one goes left 3 and down 3. So from here I'll go left 3 and down 3. Okay, next I'll move this one, so I'll slide it over to here. Now this one goes left 5 and up 2, so left 5, up 2, puts me right here. And this last one, I'll slide right over to here, and it goes right 1 and up 5, so right 1, up 5, puts me right here. Okay, so my final answer goes from the initial tail to the final head. So this right here is my resultant vector, vector r. Okay, then we are going to find the sum of these 4, and we'll do that by converting to component form and then adding them, and then we'll put it back into polar form. So I have 11 cosine negative 38 and 11 sine negative 38. That will give me component form here. And then I've got 28 cosine 221 and 28 sine 221. And then 3 cosine 270 and 3 sine 270. And then I have 15 cosine 97 and 15 sine 97. Okay, so now I'll do each of the calculations. So 11 cosine negative 38 and 11 sine negative 38. So I have 8.67, negative 6.77. Okay, then I have 28 cosine 221 and 28 sine 221. Negative 21.13, negative 18.37. Then 3 cosine 270 and 3 sine 270. So I have 0, negative 3. And last I have 15 cosine 97 and 15 sine 97. So I have negative 1.83, 4.96. Okay, and that is not right. That should be a 15. 15 sine 97, 14.89. Okay, next I can combine my x components and my y components. So 8.67 plus negative 21.1 plus 0, so I don't need to type that in, plus negative 1.83, and put in an extra plus there, negative 14.26. Then negative 6.77 plus negative 18.37 plus negative 3 plus 14.89. Negative 13.25. Okay, now we're going to find the magnitude and the direction. When I find direction, it's important to recognize negative, negative puts me in quadrant 3. And in quadrants 2 and 3, I add 180. So remember, when you have first quadrant, you add 0, then 180, 180, 360. Okay, so our magnitude is the square root of the x component squared plus the y component squared. Okay, now these are rounded numbers, so there's no exact answer that's going to happen here. So we will type the radical in our calculator. And we get a magnitude of 19.47. Okay, then direction is arctangent y over x and because we're in quadrant 3, we will add 180. So we get a direction of 222.90 degrees. Okay, so our polar form is 19.47, 222.90 degrees.